Do you really want an entire population to sit idle doing nothing with their time? The turbulent AI era is here. The choices we make now are critical. This is a nearly 6,000 word manifesto written by Bill Gates. Now we're going to talk about this because there's a lot of interesting things in here, and it sounds different from what he stated about 3 years ago in another manifesto he wrote about AI. Let's chat about this. Now, I don't think that Bill Gates got the message, right? The message is supposed to be no longer about being an AI doomer or an AI gloomer. It's supposed to be about being an AI proponent and someone talking more positive about AI. So I don't think Bill Gates got the message. While everybody else is talking about or scaling down the conversation in terms of the negative aspects of AI, because we've seen the reputation of the technology, we've seen that people are very concerned about it. And so there's a lot of negative polling in terms of AI itself and the impact it's having on people, especially with the midterm elections. Bill Gates is going against the grain and still sounding the alarm. All right, so we know that over the past couple of months, over the past year, there's been a bunch of manifestos written by some of the top thought leaders in the AI space itself. People from the actual senior engineers, software engineers that are creating the AI models that we use every single day. And then some of the CEOs putting out some of their thoughts, and some of the safety workers putting out their ideas of what's taking place. Just last week, I put up a video about Mark Zuckerberg's manifesto and what he stated. And it's a very big contrast to what Bill Gates has stated in this manifesto. Mark Zuckerberg took the position that he's going to be the ultimate optimist when it comes to AI. He's going to be the biggest supporter, the biggest proponent to developing AI and to go full speed ahead. Now, Bill Gates is taking a different direction. While he noted in his 2023 manifesto that AI has concerns, but they're basically manageable, in this one, he sounds a lot more alarmist in terms of what his thinking is when it comes to AI today and what the future potentially looks like. And that's the key thing to focus on, because we have to start figuring out, what is this technology going to do to our society? There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of people with their conjecture and their opinions and their commentary. I guess I'm one of them. But the reality is that this is a different type of technology, unlike in previous generations where we had technological advancements, like with the steam engine, with flight, with computing, and with all the new technology we have. This one's a little bit different because while, some of the other technologies disrupted some industries, they created new opportunities for people. And we've seen a whole new class of types of jobs created based on the technology we've had in the past. But this is different. In his paper, he talks about the fact that this might be the first time that a technology is actually able to not only automate the jobs that we currently have, but also to automate all the future jobs as well. And that's something we've spoken about several times already, the fact that if AI can advance fast enough and if it can get good enough, why wouldn't it be able to continue to do the same with any new potential role or opportunity or class of job that might come about? And that's something that he mentions several times within this manifesto. Another part of it, and something that we've also mentioned, and this is the part that really captures my attention because I'm a father. I have 3 kids. One of them is 21, going to be 22. The other one is going off to college. She's 18. And then I have an 11-year-old. So I think about their futures. I think about what is society going to look like for them in particular. What types of jobs are they going to be able to get? And it's probably going to be different for each of them, right? Because the 21-year-old, 22-year-old is going to end up entering his career while this transition is just getting started, right? It's still in its infancy in terms of the AI adoption and the impact it's having on employment. So I think that he's going to be fine. Now, as you go down the line, it's going to get more interesting. And, I want to be an optimist. I want to say that this technology is going to be so profound, make such a big impact, and be so meaningful to our way of lives that we have to continue investing in the research and development and the advancement of this technology. But there are real concerns that we have to really address these. We can't wait to the end, to the point that it's too late to do anything, to say, wait a minute, we have to do X, Y, Z in order to protect our economy, in order to protect the way of life that people have grown accustomed to, or to improve the way of life people have become accustomed to. So one thing he mentions in his 6,000 word manifesto is the fact that we're going to see a slow decline, and primarily you're seeing it now when it comes to entry level jobs. I mentioned in another video the issue of college graduates having the highest rate of, or one of the highest rates of unemployment in today's economy, and also the fact that the underemployment rate is nearly 40% underemployment, meaning that they have a job, is just not enough to help them start their lives. So now we're seeing that there's been a slowing down of people or companies hiring entry-level candidates, right? So if you don't have those entry-level employees roles being filled, how will they eventually become mid-level or senior-level employees? It's not going to happen. And I think this is what the concern is. It's going to be a slow decline in the way our employment happens in terms of jobs that people get, right? Because basically the old school of thought was you go to college, you get a degree, you land yourself an entry-level job. Maybe you have to get an internship before doing that. And then you would advance up the chain of command and you would climb the corporate ladder. That was the way it's been for decades. That's the promise that we've had. But now we're seeing that that's not necessarily the case. And we see that employment is harder to find for recent graduates. And that is a concern moving forward, because obviously senior level employment or senior level employees are going to end up retiring at some point. So now they're going to be phased out. And then their replacements are probably going to be the middle level employees of today who will end up being the senior employees. But then eventually they're going to retire as well. And if there's nobody to replace them, if the entry level jobs are not there, and people are not assuming those roles because AI is able to make the senior level and the mid-level individuals a lot more capable, you're going to see a gradual decline in how employment is handled or how many people are employed. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest issues. Then there's the other issue, and this one I think is extremely important because people are not thinking about it. You know, we hear about universal basic income, we hear about universal basic services, we hear about government going to be taking care of everybody, right? And okay, let's say that that works out well where the government has the money to do so. That's another topic of conversation. I did another video on that. Let's say they figure out the economics of it all and they're able to give everybody a basic income and basic services. Now what? Do you really want an entire population to sit idle doing nothing with their time? Yeah, it's going to be fun for a while, right? You're going to binge your favorite Netflix or Prime videos and shows and movies. You're going to probably play video games. Maybe you take on a new hobby, you know, working out, maybe going to the boxing gym or doing jiu-jitsu, maybe playing chess. You know, you're going to find things initially to do, and they're going to be fun. But then eventually, you're going to have more time on your hands than you know what to do with. And that is a concern. Do you want a whole society, a large chunk of the society, that has nothing to do with their time? That could be a recipe for disaster. I mean, you could obviously hope for the best in humanity, and I think that's the goal, that we hope that everybody's going to try to do the best overall. That's not always the case. You're going to have some people that are going to get restless, and it's going to cause problems. That I could already foresee happening. So now how do you deal with that? That is why another part of his manifesto is talking about, well, you know what? Maybe we're going to have to identify some roles that should just be human-based roles. And we're going to have to secure some type of employment for people because, again, employment not only provides a paycheck to people, it also provides health benefits, right? But again, you know, let's say government has that covered, but it also provides the opportunity for people to connect with other people. It gives us structure within our day. It gives us meaning sometimes if we're doing the type of job that we want to do, right? In essence, working gives you a meaning and a purpose in life. And that's the way it's been for all through time. We try to find our purpose, our reason to get up in the morning, to venture out into the world, and to try to get things done. But now if a good chunk of our society is not employed because there's just no opportunities, even if their basic needs are taken care of, that can be a problem. So yeah, so he's talking about some services should probably still, or some types of jobs, should still be human-based jobs. and not just farmed out to artificial intelligence. And now another part of the manifesto that really caught my eye is that AI is not able to replace humans in the workforce. And the primary argument is that AI still makes mistakes. And that is a fact. AI still hallucinates, as they say, and it still makes mistakes. But the problem is that you're comparing it to humans, right? So now think about ourselves, and I'm gonna think about myself, and I'm gonna use myself as an example. I think I've made a lot of mistakes in different types of roles, different types of projects, different types of work or effort that I was putting into different things I was working on. So now, did I hallucinate? And then ultimately, what does that mean when it comes to employers or companies? If companies already deal with mistakes being made by employees and obviously they try to rectify it, they try to resolve it, they try to minimize the mistakes as much as possible. But if companies and corporations already exist in a society where mistakes are made on a daily basis, again, no programmer has ever written perfect code. So AI doesn't need to be perfect itself. It just has to be good enough, and it has to be affordable enough, cheap enough for a company or an employer to say, you know what? This AI makes just as much mistakes as the human does, but it costs me a whole lot less. And I don't have to pay for Social Security taxes with them, right? I don't have to pay for Medicaid, Medicare, don't have to pay for paid sick leave or vacation time, things of that nature. Now again, when they restructure the tax code, because they're gonna have to, it's inevitable, the government's gonna have to find a way to raise money to pay for services, right? Until they do that, the tax code is set up in a way that makes it ideal for a company to start the process of reducing the workforce in some way, shape, or form, or streamlining and optimizing the workforce so that way it gets enhanced with AI. And then you can have less workers. It might end up costing the company a whole lot less overall, and it becomes just a cost analysis, right? They determine that the cost is at the right price point for them to move forward with using more AI to replace people. AI doesn't need to be perfect, just needs to be good enough and cheap enough in order to get the job done. And sometimes that means making the senior level employee or the mid-level employee a lot more productive, to the point that, again, they don't need to have entry-level employees. And now this goes into the next aspect that we need to talk about, and that's the fact that Bill Gates says in his manifesto, the fact that there just is no AI plan and how to deal with the transition. And he's partly right? Because we have some policies on the books, we have some regulations being put forward, we have a lot of proposals, a lot of ideas, but what we don't have is a real plan that's being implemented today and that's being formalized worldwide. Everybody is going at it on their own agenda. And this is concerning, right? Because again, the destination, once you get there, could be amazing. Let's say we figure everything out. Everybody, again, has their universal basic high income and universal basic services, and they find some way to find enjoyment and purpose and meaning in their everyday activities. That's the destination. Now, the path to get there is going to be a different story. That transition time from where we are today to when we get to that point. That's the part that he's talking about. The fact that we don't have a real good plan on how to deal with the transitionary period. When we start seeing unemployment go from currently where it's at nearly 5% in some industries, higher in others. Again, it's almost 6% when you're talking about recent college graduates. But what happens when that starts ticking up from the 5 to 6% going to 10% or 15% unemployment or 20% unemployment? That would be devastating to society in the short term. And we don't have a solution on how to deal with that. That's a problem, and we have to figure that out. Again, that's why in another video I spoke about how 50 experts in different fields met up at the International Monetary Fund last year to talk about the impact of AI on how government functions and the global economy. We got to figure it out. What's going to be the solution when people start losing their jobs and our government needs to start assisting people at a greater rate than what we're currently doing? Now, I spoke about in another video where we spend roughly about $7.2 to $7.4 trillion a year. And we only raised somewhere around $5.5 trillion in actual income and payroll taxes and taxes in general. So we already have a gap. We already have a deficit in our budget that we have to end up selling debt, bonds. And some of the biggest debt holders of American debt is Japan, China, the United Kingdom, and a lot of other European countries. So we already have a deficit, and that's with today's economy. The second we start seeing unemployment tick up, and the second we start seeing that people are going to need more help from government itself, that money has to come from somewhere. And government moves slow. It takes time for them to finally have a committee hearing on we're going to do XYZ policy or proposal or implement this new regulation or change the tax code. Politics gets in the middle of it. We have elections coming up in 2026 and, these midterm elections in the next month and a half or so. And then we obviously have the presidential election that's going to take place in 2028. So that's going to obviously all tie into how we function in the short term, but also what happens in laying down the framework for the long term. This technology is here. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You're going to end up having to figure out how to move forward and how to advance society with such a disruptive technology. Again, we got to make sure that people have purpose in life. You don't want people having idle hands. You don't want people sitting there all day not knowing what to do with themselves. We need to have purpose and meaning in our daily activities. And that could look different for everybody, right? But we have to figure that out. And we have to figure out that transitionary period. How do we go from where we are today to where we hopefully go in the future, where everybody's good, where everybody's living their best life possible? That transition, we need a good policy and regulations and a coordinated effort from governments all over the world working together to figure this out. Because if we change the way we operate, but another country doesn't change the way they operate, our global economy, and we're probably the most connected version of this world of humanity that we've ever had. Every country depends on another country for the most part. So we need to make sure that our global economy is thought about and that we have a mutual agreement with some of the other biggest players within this field on how to operate moving forward. So the AI jobs crisis, it's not going to be that millions of people lose their jobs overnight. It's going to be the slow degradation of entry-level jobs. And while companies can end up a whole lot more productive with less people, the economy can get richer, but the average individual might not benefit themselves. And then there's some roles that should just stay human, period. That human connection, that has value. Sound off down below. Let me know your thoughts. Have you had a chance to read this 6,000-word manifesto by Bill Gates, where he takes a much different tune than he had several years ago? If you did, let me know what you think. What are the things that really stood out for you? What did you see there that really sounds the alarm in your heads? Sound off down below. Let me know your thoughts. And if you like this video, you know what to do. If you didn't, let me know why. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.